In this demonstration, we're going to work with an Access database. Okay, in a database, there are four main objects that you work with, and that would be your tables, your queries, your forms, and reports. Your tables are the foundation because that's where your data is actually going to be held. So those structures, those tables that you build are actually going to hold the data that you're going to manipulate with the queries and with forms and reports. Now, in here on the left-hand side, you can see we have 3 tables and 1 query. If I drop the little arrow down, it would let us filter through any of those objects. But we don't have any forms, we don't have any reports, and we don't have that many objects. So it's normally better to leave all Access objects available so that you can see what you do have available in this particular database. Now, this database right here, we're going to start with working with the contractor table. So I'm going to double click on it. You're going to see that right here, you are in what's the data sheet view. Okay, we want to go to the design view. Okay, now you do that by going up here. You'll see a little protractor, and if you click on it, you'll see this is the design view. This is the data sheet view. If you drop the little arrow down, you'll see it says data sheet view. Or you could click on design view, but you can basically toggle back and forth between them because they're a view of the same table. One is showing you the data that's in the table, the other is showing you the structure of the table. Alright, so we're going to go into this design view, and the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to set a primary key for the table, and we can do that by selecting the contractor ID, which is at the top. This is going to become our primary key, and we click on primary key. It puts a little key beside it, and this becomes the unique identifier because a primary key is a unique identifier for that particular table. You can think of it kind of like your social security number is a unique identifier for you, because if we have 10 people named John Smith, you need somebody, right, to be able to help you figure out who they are. So the government started social security numbers to uniquely identify people even if they have the same name. Well, that's what databases have as well. So in each table you should have a primary key so it could have a unique identifier. Alright, so contractor ID is going to be our unique identifier, and this means that whenever data is put into the table, every time data is put into that contractor ID, it must be a unique value. Normally you'll see things like numbers are used very commonly because of the fact that it's very easy, of course, for them to be unique if it's like number 1, number 2, number 3. And it's the same reason you have like a credit card number, which is your unique identifier when you go out and buy things in the store. Okay, now you don't always have to have numbers. Sometimes you will see letters in there as well. But again, numbers are commonly used out there, especially in larger databases in today's world. All right, so we have a primary key. You have data types, which are kind of a constraint. You can put in a description of what the field is used for. And then down here you have what's called field properties, and this will let you put limitations or things on that particular field, and everyone has an individual field property. Alright, so we've got a primary key started. Next thing that we're going to do is that we're going to put a description. So you just click into it. Then we'll type primary key. Down here under the field properties, we're going to put a caption right here where it says caption. We click into the field and we're going to put in contractor ID. Alright, now you can go ahead and continue on doing the rest of this table because there are other things that you want to do in here. Another one that's a little different I'll show you is on hire date. On hire date, it's a date time, which is correct. You will put over here in there, you're going to go ahead and go down here to the field properties. You'll notice that if I click each time the field properties change, because again each one has its own properties that go with that individual field. Now underneath the hire date, I've typed in for a caption hire date. So you just click into the field and type the words. And then under format, you're going to put short date. And you do that by clicking the little arrow down and finding short date. And that would put that format on the hire date so that when you look at the data, it will be formatted so that you should see that short date format. Now we're going to go ahead and add a new field. Okay, we can do that by clicking into the one right underneath hire date. I'm going to put in PA for physician's assistant. It's going to have a data type, and these are my options. It's going to be a yes or no. And under the caption, okay, we're going to put in there as well. The caption property is going to say physician assistant. So I'm going to go down to caption and type that in. Don't put a period on assistant. Okay, the default value is no, and that's what we want it to be. All right, you can delete a record by just selecting it, okay, and doing a right click, and you can delete the row if you need to delete any. All right, so we have added a field, and again, you can see how you can work on each individual field and add field properties that are different to each one. All right, now we're going to go ahead and we're going to look at the data sheet view. Okay, so we're going to click this close and we're going to get a message that's going to tell us that when you change a field size, like in contractor ID, okay, we're going to change that down to 4. And what that does is when it closes, it's going to tell us that because we went from larger to smaller, that we could possibly lose data. So let's close it, and it's telling us that the size of one or more fields have been changed to a shorter size, and if any of the fields were longer, it will shorten them automatically. Okay, so we have to be careful that also it doesn't create a duplicate, because if that happens, it would be a violation of the primary key. All right, go ahead. I'm going to say yes. Okay, and that closed the table. Now, use that second little X down here to close things, and it's good practice to close things, because if you don't, sometimes it'll lock the table, and when you go to do something else, you won't be able to because the table is open. All right, so this one is closed right now. All right, now we're going to go ahead and we're going to actually open it back up, and we're going to look at the data sheet view. Okay, and you'll see in here we have a new column we just added, which is physician assistant. Okay, and we're going to go ahead and we're going to mark that the following contractors are physician assistants. And there are ones like Johnson and, let's see, we have, I think, 3 more. And McCabe and Lacey. All right, so we've marked some physician assistants. Okay, and we're going to resize this column by doing a right click on top of it. And I'm going to go to field with, and I'm going to put best fit. All right, once I've done those, I'm going to close this table, save it again, and we've made some modifications to that table that was already created. The next thing we're going to do is import the structure of the client table from another file. The support files that you need are in SAM, so you can download them. Make sure that you download them onto your computer and that you close them, the file. Don't have them open. Okay, you want to close things when you're importing and exporting. All right, so to do a import, we're going to go over to external data. You're going to see the stuff on the left-hand side is import and link, and the stuff on the right is export. So in this case, since we want to import, we're going to come over and we're importing an Access database. So I'm going to click on that. You need to browse and find the file that you need. So I'm going to find my folder that I have created on my computer. Okay, so that I can find that support file that I have on the machine. All right, I have it open. I'm importing, which is correct. I'm going to go ahead and click OK. It gives me an import object dialog box, and the one I want is client. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead now, and since I have the one I want, I'm going to click OK. and you don't want to save the steps, and it imported that quick. And we hit close, and you'll see now you have a client table that you've imported from a different Access database that you have on this computer. Right, now I'm going to double click on that client table and then put it into the design view. So I'm double clicking, I opened it up, doesn't have any data, it's just a structure. Okay, I'm going back to my home tab, and now I am in the design view, and then I can update some field properties this way, and I have a table of them available. So there are a number of them. That the field properties down here need to make sure that you have the correct data types that match up with what you're instructed to do. These are all ones that we've already went over, so I'm going to go ahead and skip that. Okay, you also have some records that you're going to enter into this table, and to do that, once you finish modifying the structure of this table, then you're going to go into the data view here. So you have the data sheet view, and you're going to enter the records just like what you see in the instructions. Alright, once you have entered the data into the table, okay, then we're going to go ahead and we're going to do an export. Okay, so we're closing this table because we're going to do an import, and we're going to import a text file this time. So again, you go back to external data, you find text file. Okay, again, you browse and find the file that you want. This is my text file. It says text document right here. Okay, once I have that in there, then it's asking me, do I want to import the source into a new table, append it, or do we want to link it? Okay, and we're going to append a copy because we're going to put it into the existing client table that we have set up the structure from and importing an Access database table. Okay, so we're going to append. Okay, then we're going to go ahead, and once we append, okay, so we got to change the selection here to client, so it'll pin the records into the client table. We're going to go ahead and click OK. It looks messy, but what this is what's called a text file with comma delimited data, because it has little commas that are separating the data, and that's how when we put it in there it's delimited here, which is correct. That's the one we want selected, and the commas, that way it looks for commas to see that that's how the data is going to be separated into the fields in this client table that we're importing into, and it figured out that it is commas, which is correct. Okay, and everything looks right, so we're good there. Alright, so once we've done that, we're going to go ahead and hit next, and we're importing to this table, which is correct. So we're going to go ahead and hit finish. We're not going to save the steps, and then we can close the dialog box that way. Okay, so we've imported the text file, and if I double click on the text file to check it, you'll see I have data, and I hadn't added the other data yet because I told you, that you would add data in there, but I know you know how to do that, so I have imported data in here now, so I do have that data in. I'm going to close this table. Alright, now I'm going to go ahead and open the billing table. Okay, and you can see I have a table. It doesn't have any data in it yet. Okay, and I can go back to the Home tab, click on the little protractor up there, get into the design view, and now on this table I have things that I need to change in here as well. Again, these are all things that you've done. You're going to be doing field sizes, captions, adding some primary keys in there, putting some descriptions in. Make sure to change your data types like in here when you need to. Okay, for instance, in total hours, it's going to be like number. Okay, so you would just go down and find number. So make sure to change all the things that are in the instructions that are in this table for the field name, data structure, description, and the field properties. All right, I'm going to go ahead then, and I'm going to move the total hours field so that it follows the end data field. All right, so to do that, I'm just going to select because I want to move the total hours. So if I click on it, hold it down, and drag it, and I'm going to actually move it so it follows the end date. So that's all you have to do to move them around. Okay, we've set field sizes, but for instance on total hours, we have a number, and like right now we have long integer. So again, if you drop the box down, you can find different choices. And so in this case, like you're asked to change it to integer. All right, and again, there's other things that you're going to do in this billings table, but they're things that, again, you have already done, so you can move through those pretty quickly. I'm going to close this table, save it. Okay, everything's closed. Now I'm going to import a spreadsheet using the spreadsheet wizard to add data to the billings table from an Excel spreadsheet. So I'm going to go on external data. I'm going to Excel. I'm going to find the Excel spreadsheet. Now again, these are all support files that you've downloaded out of SAM. And so this is support, the one about invoices. Okay, so I have that in there. And again, I'm going to select the option to append and to the billings table, which I just did there. And now I'm going to use the spreadsheet wizard when it pops up here. Okay, and I'm going to choose sheet 1, which I have by default. Okay, and again, you just I always look over it just to make sure it kind of looks right, and it looks good there. Okay, everything looks fine at this point. All right, and now I'm going to finish up. Do not save the import steps, and I'm going to hit close. All right, so again, this one now should have the data, and you can see it does have data in there. All right, now, next I'm going to create a table in which I'm going to eventually store data about PRN nursing services locations. So in the design view, I'm going to create a new table and put new information in. Okay, and I'm going to save this table as office. So how do you create a new table? If you go to create, table, okay, you'll see it starts the table right here. Then you want to go to the design view, make the name whatever you want it to be. So again, I think we said in this one, it's going to be called office. Okay, so now I have the table, and it's just a matter of taking the table that's in the instructions, and then you're going to implement it in this particular table right here. So like the first one is office ID, okay, and it is actually going to be a short text. Okay, and then I'm going to have my description, change my field size to 3, put a caption on it, make it a primary key, which it was by default, so make sure it did default to that. And again, go through these different fields because you're going to add office ID, address, city, state, zip, and phone, okay, to this particular table. All right, so finish up. You have the rest of those fields, data type, description, field sizes, and captions, default, those things to put in here. Once you have finished, close your table. All right, then you're going to go down, and now you're going to add some relationships in the relationship window. Okay, so I'm going to go up into the database tools, go to relationships, you'll see it gives me a list of the tables that are available, and I'm going to add contractor, billing, and client. Okay, so I have those 3 tables up there. Okay, and we're not going to add the office table right now. Okay, so we'll go ahead and close this for now. Okay, we want to resize so that you can see all the fields. So we'll just resize a little bit here so you can see everything. All right, and once we've done that, then we're going to define a one-to-many relationship between the contractor table and the billing. Okay, so you do that by, if you look over here, you can see the contractor ID, and then you're going to want to drag it over and drop it on the contractor ID in the billing table. Okay, and to do a one-to-many relationship, we're going to enforce referential integrity. Okay, now before I leave this particular edit relationships dialog box, I'm going to mention that when you do a one-to-many relationship, what that is saying is that in the contractor table, you have a primary key, which is the contractor ID. And that means that it has a foreign key in the related table, which in this case is the billing table. Okay, and so what that does is say that to have a bill, you must have a contractor ID first. And that means that way there's always a related record that is associated with the bill, because you wouldn't want bills and you didn't know who they belong to. So by having a relationship between them, that means that they're always related, so that if you have a bill that you need to mail out, you have the associated data that you need from the contractor table through that relationship that you're drawing. All right, so I have that. I'm ready to create it. Okay, now if you get this in here, it's just telling you that data in the table, the billings table, may violate the referential integrity rule. Okay, and if it does that, it's just saying that there may be data in there because there was data already existed before we built this relationship that could break one of the rules that referential integrity enforces. And again, that referential integrity is about, you have to have a contractor ID that's unique, and then it would be related in the table. You can't have something in the billing table that's not in the contractor's ID. Okay, so since I may not have put all the extra data in there, we may actually not have all the data we need in the contractor table. Once you have completed the assignment and put all the data into all the tables, you won't have to worry about that, because you will be able to enforce your referential integrity that way. Okay, so don't worry too much about that. If you get this message, again, don't worry about it. You're going to be okay with that. So for right now, I'm not going to enforce it because I don't have all the data in there. Okay, but I can still create the relationship without enforcing the referential integrity. Now, the same thing, you're going to draw another one-to-many relationship between the client and the billing. Okay, so you would have the client ID. In here, you would look for the related ID that you needed to be able to relate those two together. Okay, so I can draw the same way I did before. I can take client ID to client ID like that. Again, I don't have all the data in the table, so again, it's saying it didn't find a unique index because of the fact that I haven't put all the data in there. Okay, but I'll still go ahead and draw the relationship without enforcing the referential integrity in this case. All right, I'm going to go ahead and save and close the relationship window. Okay, so that way those relationships are already saved. Okay, so what do I mean about referential integrity? Okay, so I'm going to show you an example of that. If you look in the contractor table right now, this is the contractor IDs that I have. Each one is unique because there is a primary key here. Okay, now in the related table, which when I try to connect up the billing with the contractor, I'm going to click on that. You'll see that it also has a contractor ID in here. So all the contractor IDs from this table have to match up to what's in here. If they don't match, okay, so if these don't match up, then that's why you can't enforce the referential integrity. They have to match to be able to do that. Okay, so in there we didn't enforce the referential integrity in our relationship. So let's go back and take a look. Again, we didn't put all the data and do all the modifications to the field properties in this demonstration. So you will be doing all those things. But let me show you what it would look like. One of the things that you should have done when you created the, let's see, I believe it's the client table. Okay, you would do your modifications in here, and again, they're all things that you've done before. But one of the things to create a relationship you would need is you must have a primary key. And so when it said it didn't have a unique value on one of them, it meant that we hadn't did the primary key yet for this table. So I'm going to go ahead and add the primary key for this one. And again, there are other things that you need to do in here as well. Okay. And I'm going to save that though. I'm going to go back to our database tools, open up that relationship window. Okay, now I left the relationship, but I didn't enforce the referential integrity. Okay, and cascade the updates. So I'm going to edit this relationship. Now that I have put that primary key on there, I should be able to enforce it and then cascade those updated updates to related fields that way. Now I'm going to click OK, and this is what it will look like when you have a one-to-many relationship established. This is when they're related. This is when it's saying that you must enforce referential integrity, meaning that nothing can go into that client ID unless it exists in the client table. Right here, it can't be a billing record put in. So in other words, you can't have a bill without having a client, which makes sense. You wouldn't want bills that you didn't know who they belong to. And the same thing goes for the contractor. Okay, again, once you put the data in there that you need to in the contractor and the billing table, again, you would be able to come back over here. You can edit it, or if you've already done everything you need to do, then you can do it the first time when you create the relationship. All right, once you've done that, again, then you can close and save your relationships. And then the last thing here that you want to do is that you want to close the database. But before you do that, before you close it, you know, all the open objects need to be closed, which they are, and then you want to be able to compact and repair the database before that it actually does it as you're closing it. Okay, and you can do that by, if you click on File, you'll see that the option to compact and repair is right here. Now you compact and repair, and now you can exit access. Okay, now before you go to load anything or anything like that, make sure before you submit things into SAM that you've closed the database, and that way you can upload the correct file. It's always good practice to close things before you attach a file, whether it's SAM or email or in Blackboard or anywhere. Close your files and then do that.